Hello everyone and welcome to one of the games that was most requested while I was on vacation and showing the games from the Magnus Carlsen Invitational. And if you're wondering why I'm wearing this mask, well, it's because I'm just showing it off. I received it yesterday with a letter from a subscriber, so thank you Matthew. Matthew, his wife, made it for me and I decided to show it to you guys. There it is. It's a nice chess themed mask. There you have it. Nice pieces and everything. So after I'm done recording this video, probably gonna go to the store wearing this bad boy, and people are gonna be very jealous, but what are you gonna do? But yeah, getting back to this game, it's a really awesome game featuring the greatest opening that was ever invented in chess, Leela Chess Zero versus Stockfish. They were playing a sort of a match, sort of a replica of the match Stockfish had against Alpha Zero. I think it was like 100 games a match and predefined openings, the usual stuff. So we're gonna discuss the result and well, some other features afterwards, but now let's just check out the game. So Leela with the white pieces opens with e4. We have e5 from Stockfish, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. And with bishop to c5, we have the gioco piano. The Italian game is on the board, and we reach the position from the thumbnail. So what is the best move in this position? I don't think if you've even been following this channel for a little bit, you know where we are going with this. So for thousands of years, people were wondering what to play here. By thousands of years, I mean for a very long time. And then one man, William Davis Evans, one day said, "Here we're gonna play b4, and this shall be known as the Evans Gambit." We've never showed it. There's this first ever game where the Evans Gambit was employed in the game. William Davis Evans versus McDonald, very famous game. So I think that's the game we're going to show after this one, and then we're going to talk a bit more about this good gentleman here. But yeah, like we said, Leela goes for b4, and yes, the Evans Gambit is on the board, and one of the reasons why so many of you requested this. We have bishop captures and now c3. Accepting the Evans Gambit is always the best way to play against it. We have bishop to a5 and now d4. So sacrificing some material. And creating a very strong center and hoping to get some very rapid development. We have d6. In the old days, masters would usually accept all of these pawns and then lose terribly. We have queen to b3 by Leela, now putting pressure on the f7 pawn, and queen to d7, Stockfish defense. And now knight b to d2. Capturing is also possible, one of the moves that is played today. But Leela prefers to keep the tension. We have knight b d2, and now bishop to b6. This is the usual setup against the Evans Gambit. You clear the a5 square for the knight and you want to go after the bishop and the queen. So here we have d captures on e5 first. Now Stockfish, if Stockfish wanted, you can go knight a5 first, trade some pieces, and then go and then recapture. But we have d captures on e5 instead right away. And now a4. Bishop to a3 is also possible, very popular move, cutting the black king off from castling. But first we have a4 here. And now there is a game in the database where knight to h6 was played, but here the move that Stockfish plays is a new move, and that is knight to a5. And if you just try to continue developing and castle, it's not that easy. If knight e7, you no longer guard the f7 pawn. And if knight to f6, then you might run into bishop to a3, and only then after knight to a5, queen a2, you can trade captures, let's say, but still you will need a few moves to successfully castle with black. So here, like we said, the Stockfish goes for knight to a5 right away, and now we have queen to a2. We have queen to e7, now preparing to shift the queen over to f6, and then bring the knight over to e7, so the queen from f6 will guard the f7 pawn. Bishop to a3, attacking the queen, also slicing through this diagonal. Queen to f6, and now we have finally castles by Leela. We have knight to e7, and here is where the fun really starts. Here Stockfish is ready to castle, the bishop pair is fully operational, so we should definitely do something and keep the black king in the center of the board, at least for as long as possible. So here Leela does exactly that. Knight captures on e5, and now there's a triple attack on the f7 pawn. Stockfish just lost a pawn, so might as well pick up the knight, which is what Stockfish does. We have captures on e5, and now bishop captures on f7 with check, so keeping the king in the center of the board. king to f8, and now bishop back to d5, saying I'm not worried about this since the knight is now pinned. And yes, black is up a piece, but you still have to get this rook into the game, you still have to get this rook into the game, the bishop needs to be developed, and also the knight isn't looking all that impressive on a5. So a lot of things to figure out for Stockfish. We have c6 attacking the bishop, and now first knight f3, improving the position of the knight with an attack on the queen. Queen to f6, and now, okay, your bishop is under attack. However, sometimes you should move your piece when it's attacked, sometimes you shouldn't. Maybe this is one of those special cases. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find this deep positional idea Leela played in this position while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this incredibly deep positional idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's rook a to e1. And now it becomes obvious. Well, there's still this pin with the bishop from a3 to f8 diagonal. And now if you capture the bishop, simply captures here, opens up the attack, and you don't really have good ways of defending this. For example, if bishop back, d6 is coming, and now there's not much to play. If knight g6, you can just open up a discovery here with check, and once you block it, it's just, for example, queen or rook delivers checkmate. The queen slices this, the bishop now pins the bishop, there's nothing here, it's just checkmate. So danger lurks here. So we have h6, Stockfish creates some room for the king later on if needed. Maybe g5 is coming, but now e5, also one of the ideas why rook to e1 is such a nice move, guards the e5 pawn, and now the knight can be shifted over to d4. We have queen to f5, and now first bishop to e4, getting the bishop out of harm's way with a tempo on the queen. So queen f7, now offering a queen trade, and now queen to c2. So again, ideas like bishop here, you have to be careful, might be coming. So king to g8, here black unpins. It could be a bit dangerous putting your king and queen on the light square diagonal with white still having a light square bishop, but these squares are very nicely covered by black, so it's not really an issue so far. And here Leela plays another very, very deep move, one not everyone might decide on. Bishop captures on a knight on e7, and it seems weird. You have the bishop pair, this bishop is just beautiful, giving it up for the knight that seemingly isn't doing all that much. But Leela has a plan. So bishop captures, queen captures, and now knight to d4. Saying that, okay, if you trade here further, let's say captures, I have now a very strong center. This rook still isn't coming into the game. This rook will take at least 2 moves to get into the game, and it's very unreasonable to think that this knight will ever join the game. I mean, how are you planning to get that knight into the game? It's possible, but you have to play at least 3 moves, and while that's happening, f4, f5, f6 is coming. So here, after knight to d4, we have h5 by Stockfish, now with the ideas of shifting the rook into the attack via rook to h6, but now f4. We have bishop to e6, continuing development, and now king to h1. You don't want your king stuck on this diagonal. Now the knight can also move. We have bishop to c4, attacking the rook, and bishop to d3, now offering a trade of light square bishops. We have captures, and now rook to f8. So Stockfish definitely improved the position a little bit. He got the rook into the game. Next, the rook to h6 is coming, and you only need to figure out how to get this knight into the game. So f5 by Leela, those pawns are marching forward, and now you have to be careful. For example, if you continue with rook to h6, which seems like a logical next move, f6, it's just game over. I mean, you can go for captures, knight to f5 is coming, attacking the rook and the queen, and you just fall apart here. So here Stockfish says, f6 and the threat of this knight coming to f5 is simply too great, we must eliminate this knight. So bishop captures knight, we have c captures, and now b6. And now, okay, you've eliminated white's very strong knight, however, you've given up this very strong bishop here. And now, okay, you play b6, you free up the b7 square for your knight, but still, how is this knight coming into the game? Okay, you might come into the game via the b7 square, but from b7, where is the knight going? You can't go here. Whoa, that's a very nice arrow. I didn't know you could also draw colorful arrows. Wow, that's actually really awesome. I did not know that. But okay, at least maybe the knight has some way of entering the game. Maybe b7, maybe here, maybe f7, and then something. I don't know. But okay, rook to e3. Leela says, while you figure that out, I'm just gonna do a nice rook lift, get my rooks into the game, and well, threaten some f6 ideas. So rook to h6, and now h3. First, getting rid of any back rank weaknesses, clearing up the h2 square for the white king. We have queen to d7. Knight b7 is possible, but might be a bit too slow. So first, queen to d7. With some pressure on this f5 pawn, and now rook to g3, now threatening f6, so black has to move the king h8, and now rook f to f3. So what is happening here? If you try c5, d5 is coming, and then you just have 3 pawns here. It's just crazy. So after rook f2, f3, we have queen to e8, now saying, okay, any d5 ideas in the future, then your e5 pawn is hanging, but now queen e3. Leela now puts pressure on the rook on h6. f6 will again be incredibly strong, because if captures, then the rook here will be hanging. So knight to c4. Finally, Leela allows the knight to enter the game, but now it's not a problem. Queen to f4. Again, this is coming. So rook to f7. And now finally f6, but this is what Stockfish decided to do as a defensive idea. Rook to h7. Now everything is nicely defended. If you capture this, then captures, everything is nicely defended here. And even if you go for something like check, king g8 and queen captures on h5, white is still posing a lot of problems, but black seems to be surviving here. So instead, Leela just increases the tension with rook to g6. So what do you play here? We have g captures on f6 by Stockfish, e captures on f6, and now h4. And now black still up a piece, but not a lot of moves are possible for black here. For example, if white can get something like queen g5, rook f4, rook g4, and rook to g8, that's just it. And this f6 pawn is really a problem for black. So rook to f2 first, and now comes b5. And here, it's very hard to find a move for black. For example, if you try something like queen to e1 check, king h2, you don't have a good way of continuing this. If you try something like, let's say, bringing the knight into the game, just queen b8, and that's a game. Nothing for you to do here. This will just end in checkmate. So after rook to f2, we have b5 by Stockfish, but this is a last resort move. This is a desperado move where, I mean, you don't really do anything with this move. Leela simply captures it, and now you can't even recapture, because if you recapture, rook e2 is coming. And now, again, you cannot capture because of queen to b8, which will follow with checkmate. So you'd have to move the queen, but now ideas like rook e6 are coming, and d5, d6, and so on. For example, if b4, d5 opens up an attack on the knight, and now you don't have all that much to do. d6 is coming, b3, you can go queen to b4, and rook here will be an option, so not much you can do here. Knight c2 attacks the queen, queen c3, for example, even. And if a5, then just d7. And now this is the threat, and of course if you capture this, then just check, and that's just it. Rook g7 can be played, and now rook h6 will be checkmate. Only one of the lines that shows how hopeless Stockfish's position is. So here we have queen to f8, but now just b captures on c6. Now Leela creates a passed pawn, will be soon a connected passed pawn. We have a5, Stockfish starts pushing the passed pawn, and now queen g5, preparing rook f4, rook g4, and finally finishing up with rook to g8. So a4, Stockfish can just wait and see what happens, and now rook to f4 with the idea that we mentioned. Knight to e3, guarding the g4 square, and now even though rook captures on h4 is enough for Leela to win, Leela now starts and Leela now just starts showing off, and this is why I enjoy this game so much. First the knight sacrifice on e5, then the deeply positional rook to e1 move, and now the showing off. So rook to e4. Now saying, okay, you move the knight, and then when you move the knight, only then will I play rook to g4. And definitely what you should do here, but none of it works. For example, if this rook g4, there's no defense against rook to g8. So Stockfish unfortunately doesn't resign here in the style of old masters, but rather decides to play it on by playing a3, gives up the knight, and now we will have a grind. But which is good for us, because we will be privileged to see Leela showing off even more. So rook captures on e3, we have a2. And now rook e1, guarding the queening square. We have queen to b8, and now queen to d5. Putting pressure on the rooks, preparing to push the passed pawns. We have rook to f8, and now queen captures on a2. just eliminating that pawn. Queen to d6, and now again d5. Now the two best pawns are now connected. We have queen c7, and now queen to b1. Queen to b1. Rook to c8. You have to play something, and now queen to f5. Again, putting pressure on the rook, preparing f7. So rook to a8, and now rook to g4. We have rook to b8. Black just needs to waste moves, and now d6. Leela can win this with any move order. F7 is enough, but Leela now starts giving up pawns. d6. We have queen captures and rook to c1. Preparing to push the pawn, Stockfish blocks, and now rook to e1, preparing rook to e7, and such nice ideas. So here, if you grab the other pawn as well, which Leela is offering, then f7 is coming, and after rook f8, anything just wins. Queen e5 check, rook g7, and this is just checkmate. So instead, we have queen to d6, but now again rook to e6, attacking the queen, queen to f8, and now c7, giving up yet another pawn. Rook captures, and now of course queen e5, threatening f7 with a discovery. And now if you block the pawn, then it's just captures. Rook g8, you're gonna go queen g5 check here, and rook to h8, and that's it. Queen is gonna go here, you're gonna play queen captures with checkmate. Or instead, what happened in the game, rook to b1 check. Stockfish did not want to resign here, as again, people would say Stockfish lost in 58 moves, and instead people will say Stockfish maybe lost in 60 something moves. So king h2, and now rook to h1 check. Stockfish prepares a deep double rook sacrifice to prolong the game a few moves. We have captures, and now rook to c1 with check. King h2 and rook to h1 again with check. King captures, and now king to h7. Waiting for the inevitable, and the inevitable does come. So queen h5 check, queen to h6, and now rook to e7 check. King h8, and now of course you'll see it, mate in 1, queen captures on h6. So really incredible stuff. Stockfish getting checkmated, and even though the other part of the game wasn't really all that impressive, it was basically just a very easy grind for Leela, as I call it, showing off. But that playing the Evans Gambit, sacrificing the knight on e5, and that rook 8 to e1 positional idea, brilliant, and I enjoyed it immensely. I hope you did as well, and that that your Saturday was at least slightly improved by this game. So like I said, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Stefan Armstrong, Fernando Astu Ramila, Shiam Narashiman, Anthony Jones, and Aaron Ethan Barkudarian for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing the good stuff, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. But before that, we will probably show the first ever game where the Evans Gambit was played, and talk a little bit more about the inventor of the Evans Gambit. So, once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Have an excellent rest of your Saturday.